Hi everyone, I'm Allie. I'm going to go over with you today how to work with some curved tubes. So we're going to be working with the larger curved tubes, but make sure to stay tuned to the end when I show you some other designs featuring some different size curved tubes. Remember, if you need any materials, check out the description in the video to go to our site and shop with us online. So working with tubes is really, really fun. They work as a great spacer and they give a really modern look to your jewelry. However, they can be a little bit annoying to design with. I mean, look how this bracelet sits here. So you're not going to traditionally take a bead mat or a bead board usually and kind of lay out your designs. Most of the designs that you're doing with tubes, you're going to need to do them as you make it. So these are the curved tubes, which are especially a little bit difficult to work with. I'm going to go over in this video how we're going to take these materials, some gemstone curved tubes, some rounds, and a clasp, and make them into a nice design. So make sure to stay tuned to get some advice on how to design this multi-strand bracelet. So we're going to be doing some basic crimping. So I have my crimp beads here and my materials out, and I have a 4-strand tube clasp that I've used on the sample. We're going to be using a 2-strand so I can show you how I vary how I'm designing it when I'm making the actual bracelet. With the 4-strand tube clasp, I tend to design from the outside in. So I design the outer 2, making them look different, and then I go to the inner 2. We're going to open up our clasp garden clasp here, and when we open up our clasp garden clasp, the reason that I'm adding it is because many people won't design when it's on the bracelet. You'll add your bead stopper and design there. I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to crimp directly to my beautiful little flower clasp here. All that I need to do this project are a needle nose pliers and a wire cutter. So we're kind of going back to basics and more design element. So when I'm looking at the curved tubes, obviously if I lay them side by side here, and these are the largest ones, these are 37 millimeters and by 2 millimeters, you'll notice I can't really design much because of the way that they sit, so I can't kind of get an accurate measurement. That's a design idea right there. What I'm going to do is make the design as I'm already attaching to the clasp. So I have a piece of bead-along beading cable here, and I'm going to add a 2 millimeter crimp tube, go through one hole of the 2-strand clasp, and I'm going to bend the wire back through the crimp tube, press that up towards the clasp. Make sure that those wires, rather than crossing over one another, are laying side by side, and I'm just going to do a flat crimp. So I'm going to go in here, take my needle nose pliers, and just do a flat crimp, flattening that out nice and easy. We're going to start just like I did with the multi-strand clasp here, that tube strand, and we're going to work with our inside and then go towards the inner. I'm still doing 4 strands here as I'm working. I'm going to start with one on the outside, another one on the outside, and then do 2 more that I attach towards the interior of those loops. Designing, I'm going to be using some 3 millimeter smooth, round, silver-plated beads, as well as some 2 millimeter faceted round Amazonite. I use 2 millimeter faceted gemstones in the design, along with some demi rounds, also or Miyuki spacers can be used. So I'm using these beautiful 2 millimeter faceted gemstones, and these are in the Amazonite here. So I'm just going to get these out on my bead mat. You can see how lovely they are and what they're going to become. And now I have my materials ready. 3 simple materials, just like I did on the sample piece, and we're going to get ready to design. So when designing the first strand, I don't think about it too much. I wanted to get 2 of my tubes on there, since I'm going to put 2 on every strand. And I want to start with smaller beads and end with smaller beads. That's just going to make it easier to put my clasp on. I like to keep the clasp on and together with the tongue and the clasp section when I'm creating with curved tubes or whenever I'm doing multi-strand. That way you make sure you connect to the correct loop. I'm going through the loop that's going to sit directly opposite the one that I'm working on, and then taking my wire back through. If you want to use crimp covers, you can absolutely do so on here, knowing that the tiny 2 millimeter beads working with the 0.015 wire are not going to allow my thread to go back through any of those beads or that cable. I do another flat crimp, cut this off, and I think the same for my second strand. So I'm going to do my second strand much along the same design principles where I'm just designing one that I like. I want to make sure as I'm designing and I'm looking at it that my tubes don't line up ever and start ever exactly in the same place. So they may start similar, but they're not the exact same as I'm working with it. Making sure too, when I get to the ending, same deal. We're not going to end at the exact same place ever. So I'm going to go in here and crimp onto the second loop, start the bar a little bit sooner, go back to more gemstones, and I'm going to start my next bar about where I have my 3mm center round. So as I go in and continue to create, you can see that the second strand there, the next outer strand, starts and ends with the tubes at different locations on the bracelet. I have a long piece here with a lot of those faceted tubes, and then I have my two of my curved tubes in there. So when I'm adding the next one, I want to make sure that I push that first strand or the last strand towards the sides. And when I'm putting my crimp tube on and my next strand, that I'm going toward the interior of the project, adding this in. If you're doing a multi-strand clasp, like the example piece, obviously you're going to be connecting to the next one as well. But this one here, you want to make sure that your crimp tubes are on the interior of the previous crimp tubes. I'm going to do the same thing for the next two strands. One right there on that interior, and then one on the next interior. If you have a single strand bracelet clasp, remember you can always do this as well and just attach to that single strand. If it's not big enough, you can use a jump ring or a split ring and attach to there. So I'm going to go on and continue adding on two more. You can see where they're lining up here. I like to hold it in my hand, and then I'm going to go in and make sure my next tube starts probably about where that little ball is, so I have it starting once again at a different location. So then showing the finishing product here, you can see how I varied where I started the tubes, and you really can only do this as you're holding on to it. Obviously, if you want to use some crimp tubes or some bead stoppers, you can use some bead stoppers, hold the strands, but I feel like you really get the idea and really get a feel for it when you're actually stringing it on the project, deciding how often you're putting the tubes, making sure that the tubes sit about the same distance, and that you're getting the effect when you're wearing the project. As stated, you can always comment below and say your favorite way to wear the tubes. I love how different of a look you get when you're combining to two strands versus four, as well as the darker versus the lighter. And like I said previously, there's so many cool ways to use these curved tubes. So here's an example using some of the smaller ones here, the 10 by 2mm, that you just run a single strand through a 4mm, 2mm round, and then the noodle through the 4 as well, just going one strand. Obviously I could make this more strands if I wanted to, and just going with those beautiful turquoise rounds, getting that nice look. And then also I'm modeling here. The curved tubes, when you're stringing them separately, they're going to want to curve every other way. And they make a really, really fun and nice single strand necklace, multi-strand necklace, or even like I did here, just a wrap bracelet in this beautiful rose gold. So I know there's tons of other projects that you may have with the curved tube. And like I said, give that feedback below in the comments and let people know and give ideas for how people can look at these curved tubes, design with them, and any tricks or tips that you may have that you work with the curved tubes as you're creating. Thanks so much for sticking with me and for watching this how to work with curved tube video. Remember, if you do need any supplies, go ahead and check out in the description the links to shop with us online at PotomacBeads.com. As always, thanks Potomac Beaders for watching. Enjoy the next video, and don't forget to show us your designs with your curved tubes.